Monday morning, I got a big smile on my face because the Canucks exacted a little bit of revenge on the weekend, beating our man, Steven Psihogios of NorthStar Bets, Boston Bruins, down 2-0 in the third period, scored a late goal to tie it, and then, of course, JT Miller to Brock Besser, game over. The crowd was electric. I was electric. Stevie, we're not here to talk about that, though. We're here to talk about the Canadian Cup curse. No team has won the Stanley Cup since, of course, 1993. And when you're looking at NorthStar Bets right now, and the future odds for the Stanley Cup, the current favorite right now is the Edmonton Oilers at plus 750. And then, of course, you have the league's best team, the Vancouver Canucks, at plus 1100. Still major disrespect. And then you got the streaking Toronto Maple Leafs, winners of 7 straight at plus 1,400. And then the Winnipeg Jets, the steady Winnipeg Jets at plus 1,400. So, Stevie, simple question off the rip. Which team do you think has the best chance of breaking Canada's Cup curse?
That's a good question. And I just want to mention that no team has come closer, Justin, than your Vancouver Canucks to breaking said curse. We know how that played out. I had to get my cut back in there. I had to get a cut in. But if I'm going to bet on any of these teams to win the Stanley Cup, the team right now I think that makes the most sense is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I said it. I had to wait a moment. I had to take a deep breath in and a pause before I said it, but I'm going to say it. I think the best value right now at 14-1 is the Maple Leafs. You see the way they're playing right now. I really like the way Sheldon Keefe has shaken up the lines in Toronto. You got Tavares now playing a lot of third line and then kind of joining that top line. We saw him do that a lot against Colorado. Then you've got Max Domi, Nylander, and Bertuzzi really excelling on that second line. So if I'm going to pick any of those Canadian teams right now to bet on, it's the Maple Leafs.
Albert, you look like you've seen a ghost right now.
Is this a skit, Stevie? Is this real?
You're waiting for me to pull the curtain.
You're buying in. Seven wins in a row, and you're buying in.
You know what? I just think at the price of the best value, I look at Edmonton, who is the odds-on favorite to win the Cup, and I think to myself, well, this team could be in a wild card spot at the end of tonight. If they lose to LA, the Kings pass them and take over that third spot in the Pacific. Vancouver, they've been really good. Not going to take anything away from the Canucks. They just beat my Bruins. They've been a very good team, but again, I'm not fully sold, so I lied. I am taking something away from them. And then you look a little further down the board. I don't hate Winnipeg. If you look right now, they're only a couple points behind Dallas in that Central Division with games in hand.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, I will take the Stars and the Avalanche over Winnipeg in that division. When that leaves me with Toronto, who will likely either play Boston or Florida in the first round. And, I'm a Bruins fan, but I am not very high on this Bruins team this year. I do not think this is a team that's poised for a deep Cup run. I actually think their best course of action is to stand put. And I think the Maple Leafs, if they get Boston, who I think is their likely first-round opponent, I think Florida will jump past Boston. I'm going to take the Leafs to beat the Bruins in a playoff series as of right now. I don't like saying it. My skin's crawling. I feel like a shell of a human being. I feel like I've lost all credibility as a man, but that's who I'm going with.
You have the passion, Stevie. You believe in this Toronto Maple Leafs team.
Holy cow.
You see this? I told you, I've always liked Stevie.
Hold on 1 second.
Minus the Boston thing.
1 second here. Okay? So you have the Leafs above the Jets and the Canucks to win the Stanley Cup. Right?
You just said how many times you want him to say
no,
it?
No.
How many languages?
I'm
from a pure value play, those extra 300 points, they do add up.
I will say this: I'm loving the way the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing. I think one of the most important things that's coming out of this stretch where they won 7 games is that they found a different way to play. So now, if things aren't going well, they can always fall back on this and listen, we play some structured hockey, we can win some games. You add that to the talent that we have, the goal scoring ability, and then you got some cook in there. But in terms for me, like pure value, I like the 14-1, but I love the 14-1 for the Jets even more. You got one of the best goalies in the league. You got the best defense in the league. The problem is maybe the scoring. I mean, they don't really score as much as you would like a team to potentially make a run to the Stanley Cup, but I love their style. I think there's not one single team in the NHL where you can say, well, that team's going to win the Stanley Cup. It's so wide open this year. I watched Colorado pretty closely over the past few games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're a good team, but another team that relies on their stars. And if their stars aren't cooking, they're not really winning games. Georgiev hasn't been that great. Edmonton, I mean, good team, much better goaltending this year, but do you really believe that they can get over that hump? I don't think they're much better than last year. If anything, I think they've taken a step back. I think the only real issue in the West for Winnipeg, and you said it, is probably Dallas, but I'll take Hellebuck over any goalie in the NHL at the moment. That's why I like the 14-1 for the Winnipeg Jets.
Look, I think we all can agree the value is not on the Oilers whatsoever. I don't think that
It was.
If you got earlier in the
Yeah,
season,
it was.
Well, come on.
Hold on.
guys.
Sorry, Stevie, do you remember what number the Oilers were at when they were essentially almost dead last in the league?
On NorthStar Bets, I believe they peaked at like 25 or 22-1, and that's when I jumped. And I'm on record on this show. That's when I jumped, and I got a lot of tickets there. But now at plus 750, there's nothing left.
No.
There's no value left to bet on the Oilers.
Come on. 11 plus 1100. You got to be on the Canucks train. Come on, they got the third best offense in the league, top 10 defense in the league, one of the best goalies. We talk about if their stars are humming. Every Canuck star has been playing well this year so far, right? Quinn Hughes is going to win the Norris. Thatcher Demko has been in the running for the Vezina Trophy. JT Miller, night in and out, is proving why he is worth every single penny the Canucks paid him. Elias Pettersson, for all the crap he's been getting in the Vancouver media for not signing a contract extension, he's on pace to get another 100-point season. Right? You look at that division, and the reason why, look, the Pacific Division is this. It's probably going to be the Oilers and Golden Knights in a first-round series. Those two teams, whoever comes out of that, they're going to beat the living hell out of each other in a 7-game series. The Canucks are probably going to play either LA, more likely either Nashville or St. Louis in a first round. A series that will be relatively easy, right? The Canucks are going to face a beaten-up team in the second round, and then you talk about a team like Winnipeg, Dallas, or Colorado. Each team has holes in it. Right? I do not see how the Canucks are not to play here. They have everything going for them this season. Right? And look, I like the Jets a lot more than I like the Leafs' chances because of the fact that, like you mentioned, Albert, they don't have a good goalie in Colorado. Dallas has been there, but they can get got. And, of course, you cannot escape the fact that, look what happened last year with Florida. Sergei Bobrovsky, they rode a hot goalie all the way to the finals. The Winnipeg Jets can do the exact same thing with Connor Hellebuck. I have no faith that the Leafs whatsoever are even going to pass the first round because why? They don't have the horses on the defense. You said your Bruins. Have some faith in your Bruins. They will beat the Leafs in a first-round series in 5 or 6 games. Trust me, Stevie, they will. Don't lose any sleep about that.
You're letting your hate of the Toronto Maple Leafs cloud your judgment.
I'm not clouding any judgment. You think the Bruins, after last year's embarrassment in the playoffs, they're going to come out in game 1 of the playoffs and send a message, right? That's why I think the regular season doesn't really matter for the Bruins this year, Stevie, because they did that last year, right? This year, it's all about what happens come game 1 of the playoffs. And I think that's why the Leafs have no chance to do anything whatsoever.
My only concern as a Bruins fan is we don't have the horses down the middle of the ice. Like, I like Charlie Coyle. I like Pavel Zacha. These are fine players, but they're not number 1, number 2 centers. You can make a case that Coyle's a really good number 2, but they're all playing up a spot in the lineup. They haven't been as strong defensively as they've been in past years. Like, I know Boston has a reputation of being a very good defensive team, but if you look at like expected goals against, they're like middle of the pack. They're like 14th or 15th in the league. They've been getting by with really good goaltending from Allmark and Swayman. And hey, maybe that's enough to steal you a series against the Maple Leafs, but it's not something that I think that can lead Boston to a long run. If I'm going to break the tie, though, in the studio between Winnipeg versus Vancouver, I'm going to take Winnipeg, who actually has a higher points percentage than your Vancouver Canucks. Have already played like 80 games this year or something. They've already played. I think they're the first team to hit 60 games played this year. Vancouver. Winnipeg's got like 4 games in hand. They're like 4 points behind. I would take the extra value, those extra 300 points, and I'd also take the games in hand, and I would take Winnipeg over Vancouver. No disrespect, but again, I am disrespecting Vancouver once
Canucks
more.
are 5 points ahead of the Jets with 4 games.
I thought the regular season didn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You're saying it does, though.
But look, for a team like the Canucks, right, this year in this Western Conference,
no one is saying the Canucks aren't good, Justin Pooni.
It matters.
We like the Canucks, just not enough to win the Stanley Cup. Stevie, let me ask you a question about Boston. Obviously, the trade deadline's coming up March 8th. Do you think there's any chance, and I was thinking about this the other day, that Boston flip either Swayman or Allmark at the deadline to really strengthen that team? Is that even a possibility?
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I was getting this fresh haircut, my barber in Barrie happens to be a Bruins fan. Yeah. And we talked about this exact scenario. should they flip one or the other? And I think the answer that we both came to was yes, and it should be Allmark. Swayman, you're going to have to pay at the end of the year. He's younger, and I think that's what kind of tilts the scales in his favor. And you also have a market that I think is full of teams that need a goalie, not just teams in the playoff hunt. The team that I've floated out as a team that should be making a push for Allmark is the Ottawa Senators. I mean, here's a squad that can't buy a save, and then you have the Bruins who need help down the middle of the ice. The Senators, they have Stützle, they have Norris, and they have Pinto. Now, Stützle's probably not getting moved, but you could probably work something out talking to them about Norris or Pinto in a potential move to get Allmark, who just won the Vezina Trophy. And I don't think that's a ridiculous trade at all, especially when you consider what the asking price is for Jacob Markstrom. Markstrom has never won a Vezina, and you have a goalie in Allmark who is coming off the Vezina, very good. The only reason why he's being moved is because Boston has to pay another goalie. I think that is a logical trade partner right there.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Bruins are going to ride those two guys because they're so good together, man. I think when you look at the situation with the Boston, how they've developed that and how they get along so well, I just see them running it back like that.
Well, what an asset to have,
It's a good asset to have, right? But does a guy like Shane Pinto come in and really change it?
He's a good player.
He's a good player, right? I don't know.
Yeah. That Sens team, man, I wish they didn't get off to a bad start because they'd be in the conversation right now.
They have one of the third best records in the league since
January. It's taken some time for them to turn it around, but dude, on paper, and you can only talk about on paper for so long, but on paper, that's a really strong team. They should be in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. But again, it comes back to they've struggled to find goalies. There's been a lot of goalies who've left Ottawa and done really good over the years. You know, just a few that come to mind, like Bishop a while back now, and there's another one I'm forgetting too recently who's had a really good run, and I'm just blanking on his name. Yeah, Lehner, Joey Decord. Like, there's been a lot of goalies who've left Ottawa and have done really well, and they just can't seem to find one. But now you trade for an established veteran, a proven veteran, and Boston could use a lot of help down the middle. And those are young guys, Pinto and Norris. Pinto's been about a point per game player since coming back. I really do think they make sense as trade partners, whether we see that happen or not, or it's just a conversation between my barber and myself. That's TBD, but that's something I'm throwing out there.
Quickly, Stevie, obviously we saw last night such an incredible moment in Chicago, with Patrick Kane scoring the OT winner on the night that Chelios' number gets raised to the rafters. They're at plus 5,000 to win the Stanley Cup. I know that that's a pure long shot, but based on the way that Patrick Kane is playing, the rest of the team is playing, Eisman wants to strengthen at the deadline, potentially bringing in another defenseman. They're getting some pretty good goaltending. I mean, they got scoring across their four lines. It looks like a really good team. Do you believe that if the Wings do solidify a spot in the playoffs, they can make some noise?
Well, Albert, I just put down on them again today. I've been buying Detroit all season long. I mean, the odds have been too enticing. They've been 85-1, 70-1, now 50-1. I'm still in on all of those prices. I think Detroit, they've been playing some very good hockey. This is a team that has a lot of good young talent. It makes sense that they're a team that's punching above their weight because they had a lot of upside coming into the year. You have guys like Seider, Raymond, Rasmussen, like these good young players on this squad. It makes sense that they're starting to take a step forward in their development, and you're seeing the results in the standings. And Alex Lyon between the pipes. I mean, the only reason why the Panthers went on the run they went on last year was because Lyon got them in the playoffs. That's something you can't forget about that Florida season last year. He's been dynamite for the last couple of seasons, and I really do think that Detroit can make some noise. I'll pick them to beat Boston in the series. They've already beaten the Bruins twice in the regular season this year. I'd pick them to beat Boston in a playoff series. I think they'd give any of those teams in the East a good run for their money.
Well, Chelios said, "Don't steal my thunder" to Patrick Kane during his speech, and Patrick Kane, Showtime definitely did steal the thunder. Quickly before we head out, Stevie, 4 games in the NHL tonight. Your Bruins are in action against the Kraken, and of course the Kings and Oilers highlight tonight's slate. What are some of your best bets for the NHL tonight?
All right, I'll buy back a little bit of Bruins credibility. I like them to beat the Kraken tonight at minus 148. But my main focus, especially from a prop perspective is on the Kings-Oilers game, specifically on that LA side of things. The Oilers have allowed 3+ goals in 10 consecutive games. That means we're probably going to get some guys getting on the board for LA. I like, most importantly, and number one on my list is Drew Doughty at -103 to record a point. He's got 6 in his last 5 games. And then I also like Quinton Byfield, too, has 12 points in his last 12 games. And we've seen the high-end skill with Byfield on full display as of late.
As always, Stevie, it's been a pleasure, and we can't wait to do it again later on this week. Take care, my friend.
Likewise, guys. Take it easy.